What we call delay is often a misinterpretation of divine timing. We live in a world addicted to immediacy, where everything from food to information is delivered in an instant. So when the things of God don't arrive on our timeline, we assume something is wrong. We begin to question whether the promise was real, whether we heard correctly, whether we were faithful enough, whether we are even seen by God. The heart grows weary, the mind becomes clouded, and the soul feels abandoned. But the truth is this: God's delays are not his denials. What seems like a delay to us is often the evidence that something deeper, more profound, and more powerful is at work behind the veil. In the natural, when you plant a seed, nothing appears to happen for weeks. The soil looks the same. The surface is undisturbed. But underneath, life is forming. Roots are reaching down. Foundations are being laid. It's invisible to the eye, but essential for the growth. The same is true with God. When you prayed, he heard. When you believed, he responded. But often, his first movement is not to bring fruit to the surface. It is to develop roots in your soul. If he answered every prayer the moment it was prayed, it would not require faith. If he fulfilled every promise immediately, it would not require trust. God is not simply interested in giving you what you want. He is forming in you what you need to carry what he gives. We see this truth throughout the scriptures. Abraham was given a promise that he would be the father of nations. But he waited 25 years for Isaac, and even then he was asked to lay that promise on the altar. Why? Because God wasn't just making Abraham a father. He was making him a man of faith. Joseph was shown a vision of greatness, but was sold into slavery, falsely accused, and thrown into prison for years before he stood in Pharaoh's palace. Why? Because God wasn't just placing Joseph in power. He was shaping him to carry the weight of destiny. David was anointed as king, but spent years fleeing from Saul, living in caves, enduring betrayal. Why? Because God wasn't just giving him a crown. He was teaching him how to be a king after God's own heart. So it is with us. The delay is not punishment. It is preparation. It is the divine season where pride is stripped, self is crucified, motives are purified, and character is forged. God loves you too much to give you something that would destroy you. He waits, not because he's forgotten you, but because he is aligning everything within you and around you for the fullness of time. The enemy will whisper in the waiting. He'll say God has forsaken you, that the promise was just an illusion, that you're not worthy, that you've missed it. But the truth is greater than the lie. And the truth is this: when God says yes, no devil in hell can say no. But when God says wait, no amount of pushing, striving, or forcing can make it come sooner. The delay becomes a mirror revealing what's in our hearts. It exposes whether we worship the promise or the one who promised. It reveals whether we seek his hand or his face. In the waiting, you are given the sacred opportunity to lay down control, to surrender your timeline, to trust his heart when you cannot trace his hand. And that is where the deepest miracles happen. Not in the external change, but in the internal transformation. The delay builds endurance. The delay deepens dependence. The delay magnifies the testimony. Because when it finally comes, when the door opens, when the answer arrives, when the season shifts, it will not be a small thing. It will carry the fragrance of heaven. It will bear the signature of God. And you will know it was worth every moment of the wait. Consider the farmer who plants his crop. He does not dig up the seed each day to check if it's growing. He waters it. He waits. He trusts the process. He understands that growth happens in stages, that harvests come in seasons. Likewise, our lives are not random. They are orchestrated by the one who knows the end from the beginning. What you are waiting on may feel delayed, but heaven is never late. The same God who spoke light into darkness, who parted the sea, who raised the dead, is the same God who watches over his word in your life to perform it. And here's the mystery. Sometimes the very delay becomes the testimony. Had Lazarus been healed when he was sick, it would have been a miracle. But because Jesus waited until he died, it became a resurrection. The longer the wait, the greater the glory. The longer the silence, the louder the praise when the answer comes. What you see as a delay is often the setup for something greater than you imagine. God is not interested in temporary fixes. He is interested in eternal fruit. And eternal fruit takes time. So don't mistake silence for absence. Don't confuse slowness with neglect. Don't allow your heart to grow bitter in the pause. Instead, hold on to the truth that God is not just working toward your blessing. He is working toward your becoming. He is shaping you into a vessel that can carry the weight of His glory. And when the moment arrives, when the fullness of time breaks through your waiting, it will come with such precision, such power, such beauty that you will look back and saying, I would wait again if I had to, because the wait brought me closer to Him than the promise ever could. This is the truth to remember when you're tired of waiting. Heaven has not forgotten you. The promise has not died. The dream is still alive, and the one who spoke it is faithful. What you call delay, He calls divine timing. What you call silence, He calls sacred preparation. And what you call waiting, He calls walking with Him. Keep trusting. Keep worshiping. Keep standing. Because in the end, you won't just receive the promise. You will become the testimony. Waiting is one of the greatest tests of faith a person can endure. It is not passive. It is not idle. Waiting is active trust in the midst of uncertainty. It is choosing to believe when there's no visible reason to. And in that sacred stretch of time between promise and fulfillment, something is happening that is far more important than the outcome. The delay is not simply about the destination. It is about the transformation of who you are becoming in the process. Waiting builds character and faith like nothing else can. There are lessons you can only learn in the waiting room of life. When you have no control, when the answer is not clear, When the path forward is hidden, your heart is stripped of its pride, your motives are purified, and your foundation is tested. Faith is not forged in moments of comfort. It is birthed in moments of discomfort, of uncertainty, of weakness. The longer you wait, the deeper the work. God is not interested in shallow faith. He is not developing convenience Christians. He is shaping men and women who can walk through fire, face storms, endure trials, and still stand not because of what they see, but because of who they trust. Character is not proven in the spotlight. It is forged in the shadows. When David was anointed king, he could have fought for the throne. He could have taken matters into his own hands. But instead, he waited. He waited through betrayal. He waited through pursuit. He waited through injustice. And it was that very waiting that proved he was ready to carry the crown. Had he forced his way to the throne, he might have destroyed the very calling he was anointed for. But the waiting built humility. It built integrity. It built the kind of faith that trusts God, even when it doesn't make sense. The process of waiting reveals what's truly inside of you. It's easy to have faith when everything is working. It's easy to praise when prayers are answered quickly. But can you still worship when the promise is silent? Can you still serve when the doors remain closed? Can you still believe when the miracle is delayed? That is where real faith is proven. It is not just believing that God can do it. It is trusting Him when He chooses not to do it yet. That kind of faith doesn't come through head knowledge. It is born in the soul, in the furnace of waiting, in the trials that test your resolve, in the long nights of unanswered prayers. There is something sacred that happens when you wait with the right heart. You begin to shift from seeking God's hand to seeking His face. You begin to want His presence more than His promise. You begin to value the journey more than the destination. And in that place, your character is refined. You become more patient, more compassionate, more discerning. You begin to understand that it's not just using time to prepare your future. He is using time to prepare you. Because what good is a blessing if you don't have the strength to hold it? What good is a breakthrough if your heart is not ready to steward it? When Joseph waited in the pit and the prison, he was not just being delayed, he was being developed. Each moment of injustice, each passing year was training his spirit, his leadership, his wisdom. And when the moment finally came, when he was raised to power in Egypt, he was not the same young dreamer. He had become a man of character, of maturity, of faith. He could stand in the position of power without letting it corrupt him. He could face his brothers with forgiveness rather than revenge, because the waiting didn't destroy him. It refined him. Faith is not just believing for the outcome. It is trusting the process. It is saying, God, even if I don't see the way, I will still walk. Even if I don't feel your presence, I will still believe. Even if I have to wait longer than I ever expected, I will still trust that you are good, that you are faithful, and that you are working all things for my good. That is the kind of faith that moves mountains. Not because of its size, but because of its substance. It is faith that has been tested, the purified, and proven true. The delay teaches you that your identity is not in your answered prayers. It is in your relationship with the one who answers. The longer the wait, the deeper the dependence. You stop looking for shortcuts, and you stop chasing quick fixes, and you begin to lean into the heart of God. You begin to understand that sometimes the greatest miracle is not what you receive. It is who you become. Because the goal is not just to get through the wait. The goal is to grow in the wait. To come out of it not just with a blessing in your hand, but with faith in your heart, wisdom in your mind, and strength in your spirit. And here is the mystery. What you gain in the waiting often becomes more valuable than what you were waiting for. You begin to realize that while you were asking for the promise, God was shaping the vessel. While you were praying for the door to open, God was reinforcing your foundation. And when the moment comes, when the waiting ends, and the promise is fulfilled, you'll understand why the wait was necessary. Because the delay was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. So do not despise the wait. Do not curse the process. Do not rush what God is doing slowly. He is not withholding from you. He is working in you. Let the waiting develop your character. Let it deepen your faith. Let it anchor your soul. Because the same God who gave you the promise is the one who is walking with you in the process. And when it's time, when the work is complete, when your heart is ready, you will step into what He has prepared. And you'll do so with the strength, wisdom, and faith that only waiting could have produced. The wilderness has always been part of the journey for those who are called by God. It is a place of seeming isolation, a season where nothing appears to be moving forward, where answers are delayed, and the sense of divine presence is quiet. But make no mistake, the wilderness is not a mistake. It is not a detour. It is not a punishment. It is a sacred season of preparation. In the economy of heaven, the wilderness is the workshop of destiny. It is the fire where gold is refined. It is where distractions are removed, illusions are stripped away, and the soul is laid bare before God. The wilderness is not where God abandons His people. It is where He draws them closer. It is in the wilderness that you hear His whisper, because every other voice is silenced. The comforts of life are removed. The crutches are broken, and all that remains is the question: do you trust Him even here? Do you trust Him when the manna has not yet fallen, when the water has not yet flowed, when the breakthrough has not yet come? The wilderness reveals the truth of your relationship with God. It shows whether you love Him for what He gives or for who He is. It uncovers whether you are following Him for the promise or for His presence. Look at the pattern throughout Scripture. Moses spent 40 years in the wilderness before he encountered the burning bush. Israel spent 40 years in the wilderness before they crossed into the promised land. Elijah was sustained in the wilderness by ravens before he stood on Mount Carmel in victory. Even the Mesha was led by the Spirit into the wilderness before beginning his ministry. If the wilderness was necessary for them, how much more will it be necessary for us? It is not the evidence that God is far from you. It is the proof that He is shaping you for something greater. In the wilderness, things die. Old habits, old ways of thinking, false dependencies, shallow faith. The things that cannot go with you into your future are removed in the wilderness. It is where your identity is redefined, where your trust is tested, where your worship is purified. When Israel came out of Egypt, they were free from Pharaoh, but not yet free in their minds. Egypt was still in their hearts, and the wilderness was where God worked Egypt out of them. He gave them laws. He taught them to trust Him daily for manna. He let them thirst so they would learn to cry out to Him. He let them hunger so they would learn He is their provider. The wilderness turned a group of slaves into a holy nation, and so it is with you. You may be free from your past, but God wants to set you free in your soul. The wilderness will strip away pride. It will confront fear. It will expose unbelief. It will challenge every place where your faith is not rooted. But it will also become the place where your faith becomes real. When there is nothing left to lean on but Him, that's when you truly discover who He is. He is not just the God of the mountaintop. He is the God of the wilderness. He is not just the God of victory. He is the God who sustains you when you are surrounded, tired, and unsure. The wilderness is not meant to last forever, but it is not to be rushed either. Every day in that place has purpose. Every step is part of the refining. If you try to escape too early, you may miss what God is trying to build in you. If you try to shortcut the process, you may arrive unprepared for the next season. Do not despise the wilderness. Embrace it. Ask God what He wants to show you, what He wants to teach you, what He wants to remove from you, what He wants to deposit into you. Because when you come out, you will not be the same person who walked in. In the wilderness, you learn to walk by faith and not by sight. You learn that His word is more reliable than your emotions. You learn that your feelings do not determine His faithfulness. You learn to live by every word that proceeds from His mouth. And that is a lesson you cannot learn in the palace. You must learn it in the desert, in the quiet, in the long nights, in the seasons when the heavens seem still and the earth offers no answers. But here is the hidden blessing. God speaks in the wilderness, sometimes more clearly than ever before. He speaks through the stillness, through the waiting, through the stripping. He speaks in ways that are only possible when the distractions of life have been removed. It is in the wilderness that your ears become tuned to the frequency of His voice. And when you hear Him there, you will carry that voice with you wherever you go. The wilderness does not only prepare you for the promise, it protects you from the destruction that can come when a person walks into their calling without being prepared to carry it. A blessing given too soon can crush a person. A platform given before character is formed can lead to disaster. God is not just trying to get you to your destiny. He is forming in you the strength and humility to handle it. The wilderness builds that strength. It grounds you in truth. It trains your hands for battle and your heart for worship. So when you find yourself in that dry place, remember, you are not lost. You are being led. The cloud may not be visible. The fire may not be seen, but He is with you. His presence has not departed. His purpose has not changed. And His promise has not failed. The wilderness is temporary, but the work He does in you during that season is eternal. You may be tired. You may feel forgotten. You may wonder if you've taken a wrong turn. But you are exactly where you need to be for God to do what only He can do. Let the wilderness refine you. Let it teach you to depend on God alone. Let it break you only to rebuild you stronger. Because when the wilderness season is over and the doors begin to open, you will not just walk into the promise. You will walk in authority, in maturity, in clarity, and in unwavering faith. And you will thank God not just for the destination, but for every step He led you through the desert. There is a moment when what you've waited for finally arrives, and everything begins to make sense. The tears, the silence, the trials, the wilderness, all begin to align into a divine picture you could not see before. The promise comes, but it does not arrive early. It arrives exactly on time. Not on your clock, but on heaven's. The human heart is wired for impatience. We want things quickly, instantly, without process. But God does not work according to our urgency. He works according to divine precision. He is not moved by panic. He is not influenced by pressure. He fulfills His word at the perfect moment, when it will do the greatest good, produce the deepest growth, and bring the highest glory. Throughout the Scriptures, we see that God's timing is rarely early, but never late. Sarah gave birth to Isaac long after the point of natural hope. Yet the child came, just as God had said. The Israelites were trapped between the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army. And only at the final hour did the waters part. Jesus waited until Lazarus was dead for 4 days before showing up and calling him out of the tomb. Why? Because in the waiting, the glory is multiplied. In the delay, faith is purified. And when the promise comes, no one can say it happened by human effort or coincidence. Everyone will know it was God. When the promise comes, it carries the fingerprints of God. It is marked by peace, by alignment, by supernatural favor. It doesn't come with striving or forcing or manipulating. It flows. It is surrounded by confirmation. It speaks of divine orchestration. And when it arrives, you will see why the waiting was necessary. Because had it come earlier, you wouldn't have been ready. Your character wouldn't have been prepared. The people you needed around you wouldn't have been positioned. The lessons you needed to learn would have been incomplete. The platform you were praying for would have become your downfall. but because you waited, because you endured the season of silence. You will now walk in the fullness of the blessing without losing your soul in the process. The right time is not just about the promise. It's about the people and places connected to it. Sometimes the delay is not about you. It's about what God is doing in others. There are connections being formed, situations being aligned, hearts being prepared. The kingdom of God is not built in isolation. It's built in divine community, in divine connection. And the timing of your promise is tied to the purpose of others. God is weaving a tapestry that includes your story, but also the stories of those you will impact, influence, and minister to. If He brought the promise too soon, the people He intended to reach through you might not be ready. The fulfillment of God's promise is also tied to His glory. He wants you to receive the blessing, yes. But more than that, He wants the blessing to reflect His nature, His power, and His faithfulness. When the promise comes at the right time, it becomes a testimony, not just a reward. It becomes a declaration to the world that God is who He says He is, that He keeps His word, that He can be trusted, that He does not forget. The timing becomes part of the testimony. And the longer the wait, the louder the praise when the answer finally arrives. God is not in a hurry because He is not uncertain. He is not reacting to circumstances. He is orchestrating them. He sees the end from the beginning. And when He gives a promise, He already knows the exact moment it will be fulfilled. Your responsibility is not to predict the timing, but to remain faithful in the waiting, to prepare yourself, to stay positioned, to not grow bitter or weary or distracted. Because often the promise comes when you least expect it. It catches you off guard. And if your heart is not ready, you may miss the very thing you've prayed for. You must be faithful in the meantime. Keep serving. Keep praying. Keep worshiping. Keep walking in obedience. Because the waiting is not passive, it is active trust. It is building the foundation that will support the weight of the promise. And when the timing is right, you will not have to force it. The doors will open. The provision will flow. The connections will appear. The breakthrough will happen. And you will know it wasn't you. It was Him. It wasn't random. It was divine. It wasn't luck. It was purpose. And even more, when the promise comes, you will carry something deeper than the fulfillment itself. You will carry a deeper relationship with God, a trust that has been tested and proven, an intimacy that was forged in the silence, a resilience that was shaped in the fire. The promise is beautiful, but what it produces in you is even more precious. Because now, you don't just have the blessing. You have the character to steward it. You have the humility to handle it. You have the wisdom to protect it. And you have the testimony to share it. So wait with confidence, not with despair. Wait with hope, not with fear. The God who promised is not a man that He should lie. He is not indifferent. He is not delaying to torment you. He is preparing the perfect moment. And when that moment comes, you will step into a season that was crafted by His hand. It will be bigger than what you asked for. It will reach farther than you imagined. It will overflow into the lives of others, because that's how God works. He doesn't just fulfill promises. He exceeds them. You may not see the full picture now, but trust that He is painting something beautiful. Each moment of waiting, each tear, each unanswered prayer, each delayed door, it is all part of a masterpiece that is still in process. And when it's unveiled, when the promise bursts into reality, you'll understand why it had to happen this way. Because the right time is not your time. It is His time. And His time is always perfect.